Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Zerg strategy. Now the player we're going to be focusing on in this game is going to be EG's Idra, and the opponent here is Duckload Raw, also known as White Raw. So this is going to be a Zerg strategy, a Zerg first Protoss strategy more specifically. Now what we're going to be taking a look at in this game is going Roach heavy against a Protoss opponent. We're also going to be taking a close look at scouting, upgrade timing, and pushing timing. Those are the three things that are really well highlighted in this particular replay. Now again, this is a game between Idra and White Raw. We are here on Metalopolis. Let me go ahead and speed up at the beginning. I don't know why I didn't do this from the get-go, but did I say get-go or get-go? Interesting. Am I advertising for insurance? Anyways, yes, we're going to be, let's take a quick look at the build order that Idra ends up using in this game. Realize, as always, build orders are subject to change based on what your opponent's doing. What's really important is you have a solid fundamental grasp of the basics and when you should be getting things typically. And, you know, I say that because people are like, oh, you shouldn't do build orders are stupid. Well, you know what would be stupid? If you dropped a hatchery at like 21 supply or something, like before doing anything else, no spawning pool, nothing, you're just drone up until 21 and dropped a hatchery. The reason we give the build orders is to give newer players the basic fundamentals ideas of when things are supposed to be coming at what point in the game, given, you know, constant droning and your scouting and everything else that's going on. So anyways, yes, the basic build order that Idra does use in this game is going to be 15 hatch, 15 pool, 17 extractor. That's his basic opening, going of course with that hatch first. Something very cool to note here, if you deal with any type of harassment like this, like the possibility of getting cannoned, don't just send your drones to attack, because they would all just attack where this one is. Make sure you pull guys to the backside and have them attack as well. If that pylon was just dropped and you grabbed drones and clicked attack and clicked on the pylon, they would all just sit in this corner. The AI doesn't have them naturally move around those mineral patches like when it's in that position, so you have to manually do that. That's fairly simplistic. So anyways, yes, the extractor pops up. We're going to, of course, saturate that right away. The second you get that 100 Vespian, that's when that metabolic boost is going to come out in this game that ends up being at around 28 supply. Now, some important things that we're going to be looking at is the scouting. You always want to have a good idea of what your opponent's doing in relation to what the norm is. So Idra's coming in at this point in the game. He expects to seize the gateway, the cybernetics core, possibly that second gateway there, but also there might be a robo there. You want to check the number of gases. If there's one gas, that leads you to believe maybe there's an expansion or a very strong one base push could be coming, like one of those Zealot Stalker pushes with one 4-gate or 5-gate or something like that, some sort of variant of that. So yes, of course, when that spawn pool does pop, you're going to be building your first 2 queens at your main and at your natural. Couple Zerglings is usually the norm, usually about 2 to 4. We can see right now Idra sitting with just the 2, using those primarily for scouting. He's got the drone scout inside of the main base, and what has he seen? Well, he saw this right here, and this was in fact a 3rd gateway. So you of course want to leave that scout alive as long as possible. You want to check those buildings. You want to check those production buildings. Now, in seeing that 3rd gateway, what that told him is it could very well be a 3-gate expand. In fact, that is what he's expecting. So his immediate response is to drop a hatchery, get your 3rd base, because you of course, as a Zerg player, do want to make sure you're 1 base above your opponent. But one thing you don't want to have happen is you don't want to expect something and not follow up on scouting to confirm it. So what we're going to see Idra do here is he's actually going to be moving out with these workers, with these Zerglings, and he is going to be scouting the expansion to check precisely if his opponent here, White Raw, has dropped that expo. That's something that you really want to be 100% certain of. We can see right now Roach Warren coming into play. There was only one guy on the gas after that metabolic boost because he wanted to use those minerals, those extra resources to get up this 3rd base through his scouting. But here's a Zergling scout, the secondary scout, checking that expo, confirming. Now, seeing that once is not enough. And let me pause here to just to reiterate that and kind of hammer that home. When it comes to something like an expansion, you want to be 100% sure that that thing finishes and is built. Because we have seen a lot of times in the past, people go with those fake expos, canceling the nexus at the last moment, and then pushing out with a strong 4 or 5-gate push. And if you're not expecting that 100% and you don't see it coming, it can be devastating, especially if you do what we've seen Idra do here and come up for that 3rd base. You need to be 100% sure that that bad boy is in fact finished, again, because if you don't, you could be in a whole heck of a lot of trouble. Now let's talk about upgrades and everything like that. What's going to actually end up happening, we can see that Lair ends up coming out at about 44 supply. The reason it's relatively later is because, again, Idra decided to come up for this 3rd when he saw and expected this expansion here from White Raw. Also, Overlord over here, Prime primed and ready to go in for secondary scouting. That's going to be used as a kind of a sacrificial unit to check any sort of production buildings and try to sneak on in. This is something that's definitely really important. If you can get Zerglings inside of the base one way or another, especially once you have that Metabolic Boost, it is highly suggested that you do so. So we're going to see Idra move on in here with the scout, and again, he's checking those production buildings. You want to see, are there 6 or 7 gates? Is there a Stargate? Is there a Robo? And as you can see right now, White Raw just sitting on kind of a normal 3-gate Robo. Nothing too strong, nothing too aggressive. Looks like he's probably playing fairly macro heavy. Now back over here, let's talk about these upgrade timings and everything like that. The Lair just finished, so what happened is then Idra decided to get those 3 extractors because he's going to start working on his army and he's going to start working on his upgrades. Taking a look at units right now, only 7 roaches, not a whole heck of a lot. He's been primarily focusing on his econ because he's been consistently scouting. We've seen this game, Idra's been scouting, he's been inside of White Raw's base non-stop. He kept checking the expo, he checked the unit comp, he did everything like that. Now at this point, again, the Lair pops, dropping down those additional extractors, the 2 at the 2nd and the 1 at the 3rd as well. You're probably not going to need that 4th. It's just not very likely not going to need that 2nd one at the 3rd rather in terms of extractors. But this is when the upgrades are going to start. What we're going to see is we're going to see the Roach speed come in. We're going to see that level 1 missile attack come in. We're also going to see the Overlord speed, burrow, and tunneling claws. These are all things that we're going to see Idra going for, and that's basically what you want to do. You scout, you drone up, you make sure there's no aggression coming. You can see here he actually scouted out again and checked the 3rd base. And in seeing the 3rd, this is when we're actually going to see Idra decide to push out for some aggression. But let me just pause here because I've been going a little bit quick and I want to make sure that we have a kind of clear understanding of what's happening or what took place in this game. So Idra went for a normal quick expansion. Again, 15 hatch, 15 pool, 17 extractor. That is pretty basic, kind of a pretty normal Zerg opening, econ friendly kind of build. So then what happened is he scouted out, got inside of Idra's base with that secondary drone scout, and scouted around, and he saw 3 gateways. That leads you to believe, when you see just 3 and not the 4th, that leads you to believe that a 3-gate expand is coming. That's a very popular, very normal Protoss build. In seeing that, expecting that expansion, he automatically, right away, dropped down his 3rd base. Now, you want to make sure that you're not shooting yourself in the foot by doing this. So he consistently, as we saw with those Zerglings, went back and forth and checked this expo until he was confirmed that it was actually up and building. Now, your question is going to be, okay, well, what if I can't get into their base and I can't see those 3 gateways? If you don't happen to get a Zergling or a drone inside of the base, the response is going to be use an Overlord. It's worth sacrificing to see what's going on, to know what to expect. So you send in your Overlord sacrificial scout, and then if you spot the 3-gate that way, that's fine. Then you're going to go ahead and drop that 3rd base. And then what happened is he consistently kept scouting. He went non-stop. He just used those speedlings, run around. He ended up getting in the base again, and then, checking the 3rd as well, saw that White Raw came out with the 3rd. Now, in terms of what's happening with upgrades and everything like that, what I want to talk about is that the Lair ended up coming at 44 supply. That's just basically when he could afford it. That's all you should really think about. As soon as he could afford it, first with the first 100 Vespian getting the Metabolic Boost, the second 100 Vespian starting the Lair. Once that happens, you can afford it, you get it, then that's when the upgrades come. You're going to be dropping your Evo chamber, get that level 1 upgrade. You do, of course, want to get that Overlord speed. That's going to make them, scouting-wise, much, much more effective. Get that Roach speed upgrade as well. In this game, also, we're going to see Burrow coming out from Idra, as you can see here, and as well as those tunneling claws. We're going to see Idra actually go for all of those. Now, an important point in this game, like I just mentioned, is he had just scouted out the 3rd base. You want to check that around the 10-minute mark. If you make sure you check around 10 minutes and you see that the 3rd is up, that's going to leave you with a decision. We talk about this decision quite a bit. The decision when scouting an expansion to attack or expand. In this game, we're going to see Idra go for attack, and the reason he's going for this is because he's been churning out these upgrades, he's been working on his econ, and he's in a prime position to attack, and the fact that White Raw is investing in this 3rd base means that he's likely not to have as much to be able to defend himself, and that's kind of the real big crux, that's a real big issue with going for these expansions, is that it puts you in a momentary position of weakness. So Idra going for a timing attack, you can see the level 1 upgrade getting very close to finish, the Burrow getting very close to finish, those tunneling claws are going to finish very closely soon. So he's going to be pushing out, being aggressive at this point. You're going to see him stop droning pretty much and can just continue to work on this aggression. You can see a ton more roaches coming out. You're also going to see they, of course, rallied right to outside the fight. That's always going to be a great idea. And once that Burrow comes up, these force fields become much less problematic, and that's kind of one of the big things that you really want to be able to use them for. So the burrow finishes and you have those tunneling claws, you can just tunnel right under them and you're all set. And again, look, Idra keeping up this aggression. He knows that this third is still up here. One big thing too, when they're immortal heavy, you need to target fire those down. You do not want to leave those immortals up because they will tear through your roaches. They just absolutely demolish roaches, and you have to make sure, look at this, Idra just continuing up this aggression. This is the point in the game where he says, I'm not going to drone up anymore. I'm not working to work on my economy for the late game. I'm just trying to take him out. This is, of course, the decision that all Zerg players make with each and every one of their larvae, but what you do when is just going to be based on what you scout and if you feel like you're in a good enough position to attack and take someone out. And obviously, that is what Idra felt like, based on his scouting, he was able to do. So hopefully you guys, enjoyed this game. It's actually just about to wrap up right now. White Raw is just way too far behind, and in the fact that he went for the space over here, invested in these static defenses, he just did not have enough to deal with this, especially the tech of those bird roaches. It's just way too much for him to handle, and that's what forces him to call the GG. So yeah, guys, this was a really good example of using proper scouting. I wanted to show you again the upgrade timings and scouting to figure out what your opponent's doing and responding as a result. This is something that we're going to do in every single game of StarCraft that we ever play if we want to be effective. So one last recap of specifically what happened. I'll also just run over that build order quick in terms of how it played out. We saw that 15 hatch, we saw the 15 pool, and the 17 extractor. Very, very standard opening. Saturate that extractor once you have 100 Vespi, and that's when you're getting the metabolic boost. Through scouting, he managed to get a Zergling up into the base of White Raw, saw those 3 gates. That immediately tips you off to an expansion. 4 gates, probably don't go for that third base, stick on the 2, but if you just see 3, you're probably likely to be seeing a 3-gate expand. Also try to make sure you look for hidden tech, because it could be going like 3-gate Stargate Void Ray push, something like that. So just keep an eye out, keep your units scouting around the map, keep your overlords and your initial Zerglings active constantly, grabbing towers, checking dark corners, everything like that. But in scouting the 3-gate expand, that is when Idra decided to come up with his 3rd base, and then consistent scouting to confirm that that nexus and at that expansion actually came up, because the last thing you want to deal with is a cancel nexus into a strong push. Just make sure, confirm that that actually comes through. Then, after your metabolic boost, when you have that extra 100 Vespi, and that's when you get that layer. When the layer pops, that's when you start churning out those upgrades. Just keep scouting, make sure it doesn't look like any aggression's coming, and start churning out those upgrades. And what we saw from Idra, basically, as soon as that layer popped, we saw him go for the Glial Reconstitution. We saw him get the Overlord Speed, the level 1 upgrade. We also saw the Burrow research, and the Tunneling Claws research. And once he had all of those in, went for a big, strong, aggressive push, scouting out the 3rd. Instead of taking his 4th, just massed up on roaches, pushed up against White Raw, and it broke his back. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy the content, as always, make sure you please do go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep watching and keep owning.